Crystal Maiden, a character study, the stillness that shatters worlds. Welcome to this in-depth character study of Crystal Maiden, one of Dota 2's most iconic supports. This essay is designed to be a thoughtful exploration of her lore, gameplay, design, and psychological appeal. Whether you're listening during your daily routine, relaxing at home, or on the go, this study aims to enrich your appreciation for this enduring hero. Let's dive into the frozen depths of Riley's story and power. Part 1. Introduction. The cold flame of discipline. Among the diverse cast of Dota 2 heroes, few evoke as immediate and iconic a presence as Crystal Maiden. Draped in blue and frost, her figure is a familiar sight on both the battlefield and in the imaginations of players around the world. She is, on the surface, the archetypal support, a bringer of crowd control, team sustain, and utility. Yet, beyond the recognizable silhouette lies a complex interplay of gameplay mechanics, mythological symbolism, and psychological allure. This is a study of restraint, of quiet power, of a character that thrives not through brute strength or chaotic mobility, but through control, positioning, and poise. Part 2. Origins and Lore, a sister of opposites. Crystal Maiden, known in lore as Riley, hails from a cold, secluded region where her innate magical abilities caused constant turmoil. Her childhood was marked by mischief, not out of malice, but because of an uncontrollable affinity for ice. Her parents, unable to manage her growing power, sent her away to live with a reclusive ice wizard deep in the Blue Heart Glacier. There, Riley honed her powers through discipline and isolation. What makes Riley's story more intriguing is her relationship with her sister, Lena, the Slayer. Where Riley embodies restraint and control, Lena represents fire, aggression, and flamboyance. This elemental and emotional opposition isn't just clever storytelling, it provides thematic contrast that echoes through their kits, personalities, and gameplay identities. Riley's lore isn't expansive in terms of cosmic stakes or world-shaking events, but that's precisely what gives it weight. Her tale is human in scale, a young woman, misunderstood, seeking mastery over the chaos within. Part 3. Aesthetic and thematic design. Stillness in motion. Everything about Crystal Maiden's visual and audio design is meant to communicate serenity amidst threat. Her color palette, dominated by blues and whites, invokes the serenity of snowfall and the deadliness of a blizzard. Her voice lines are friendly and sometimes naive, but tinged with confidence and clarity, suggesting someone who has found peace through discipline. Thematically, she stands for order. In a game of chaotic clashes and frenzied movement, Riley requires and rewards stillness. Her ultimate ability, Freezing Field, literally roots her in place, transforming her into the eye of a storm. This frozen stillness is not passive, but paradoxically active, a forceful statement of presence and power. It's deeply poetic that the longer she is still, the more deadly she becomes. Her freezing field punishing those who dare approach with an onslaught of chilling destruction. Her lack of movement isn't a weakness, it's a trap, a calculated defiance that turns vulnerability into dominance. She becomes a sculpted paradox, motionless, yet lethal. Part 4. Gameplay mechanics and strategic identity. Riley is a study in stillness and suppression. Her presence on the battlefield is never defined by speed or shock, but by control, measured, deliberate, and unyielding. She is the calm at the center of the storm, the one who dictates the pace even when the world seems to outpace her. Her abilities, while mechanically simple at first glance, are layered with intent. Crystal Nova is more than a basic area of effect slow. It is the frostbite of hesitation itself, punishing recklessness and controlling space with chilling finality. It paints the battlefield in Riley's terms, no longer a place of freedom, but a map of diminished options. It is often the first sign of her presence, a flash of blue light that quiets motion and marks the beginning of the end. Frostbite, her single-target route, is a direct assertion of will. It punishes overextension and isolates prey, freezing not only movement but momentum. Against blinking cores and charging tanks, it becomes the equalizer, a spell that reminds everyone that no matter how fast you are, the ice catches up. But it is Arcane Aura that reveals her truest role, not merely a disabler, but a quiet enabler. In a game defined by tempo and resource constraints, Rylai offers an invisible sanctuary, constant, effortless mana. Her allies cast more, farm faster, survive longer. In a way, she's less the flash of the spell and more the breath between spells, sustaining the rhythm of the team like a conductor whose hand never tires. Her support is not loud, but foundational, an unseen infrastructure that allows others to shine. And then there's Freezing Field, the signature, a symphony of ice and death, channeled at the cost of her vulnerability. Enemies often see it as a high-risk maneuver, a desperate flourish. But in the hands of a disciplined player, it is an act of psychological warfare. The decision to stand still in the center of chaos, to channel power while chaos swirls, is an act of defiance. Without items, it demands perfection in timing and positioning. With Aghanim's Scepter, the equation changes dramatically. No longer a turret, Rylai becomes a Stormwalker. With the upgrade, she can move, cast spells, and activate items while maintaining her ultimate. This not only shatters her traditional weakness, it recasts her entirely, from vulnerable artillery to spectral executioner. A Black King bar turns her into a magic immune hazard. A Shadow Blade allows her to phase in and out of visibility mid-channel, an apparition that haunts the backlines. The battlefield becomes her icebound stage, and every footstep a choice. Do you dive her and risk a trap? Do you flee and give her control? This evolution from stationary threat to mobile enforcer doesn't just change her mechanics, it reshapes her psychological presence. Enemies must constantly reorient. They cannot assume. She becomes unreadable. Her game is one of anticipation and misdirection, of playing on the enemy's instincts and punishing them for trusting them. Even her aura plays into this mind game, creating a team-wide resource advantage that's rarely noticed until it's gone. And in that, Rylai reveals her identity, not as a blizzard that appears out of nowhere, but as the encroaching cold that was always there. Patient, silent, inevitably closing in. Part 5. Player Archetypes and Psychological Appeal. The Ice Within. Crystal Maiden attracts a diverse array of players, each drawn to different facets of her identity. On one end, she appeals to those who thrive on coordination, control, and quiet contribution. These players, often the unsung heroes of a team, relish her mana sustain and crowd control, seeing her as the ideal enabler of more aggressive cores. For them, Rylai embodies the calm strategist, someone who succeeds not by out-damaging or out-farming, but by out-thinking. Yet Crystal Maiden also tempts subversion. Some players delight in flipping her intended role on its head, maximizing her magical burst, building survival tools, and seeking impact through surprise aggression. This duality between order and disruption, between harmony and rebellion, reflects how even the most rigid archetypes can become vessels for personal expression. She allows players to rebel while appearing composed, to dominate while seeming demure. That contradiction becomes her secret weapon. A character whose power comes not just from what she does, but from how she chooses to wield restraint. Part 6. Real-world reflections and cultural impact. Rylai's design taps into the archetype of the Ice Sorceress, a figure found throughout mythology, from Andersen's Snow Queen to Japan's Yuki Onna. Traditionally cold, mysterious, and distant, these characters symbolize emotional detachment and unearthly power. Crystal Maiden reinterprets this. She is not aloof or cruel. She is warm-hearted, encouraging, and openly collaborative. She retains femininity in her design, long hair, soft voice, flowing attire, but she never leans on seduction or mystique to command attention. Her strength lies in intellect, resilience, and grace under pressure. In doing so, she sidesteps the damsel and dominatrix tropes that often define female game characters. She is not a fantasy of submission or domination. She is a force of support, structure, and unshakable intent. That's why she's memorable for so many. For some, she was the first lesson in patience, in map awareness, in the quiet satisfaction of helping others succeed. Her presence lingers, not because she overwhelms, but because she shapes the entire flow of battle without ever being the focus. She embodies a different kind of fantasy, to be indispensable without being dominant. Part 7. Contrasts and Counterpoints. Mirrors in the Frost. Comparing Crystal Maiden with other heroes crystallizes her unique place in the game. Winter Wyvern, for instance, also wields frost magic, but her design centers around ambiguity and manipulation. Wyvern's ultimate, Winter's Curse, turns enemies into accidental executioners, demanding cunning and prediction. If Rylai is a snowstorm of discipline, Wyvern is a blizzard of intrigue. Both slow and punish, but Rylai controls space through clarity, Wyvern through chaos. They are thematic siblings with contrasting souls. Lich offers yet another frosty archetype, the cold tactician. Where Rylai roots enemies to preserve order, Lich often sacrifices or exploits units for personal gain. His intelligence is calculating, sometimes cruel. He feels ancient and dispassionate, the ice of apathy rather than principle. He is frost as entropy, not structure. Outside the domain of ice, Death Prophet provides a revealing contrast. Her power is spectral, unrelenting, eerie. Where Rylai halts chaos with control, Crobulus advances it through inevitability. One enforces stillness. The other conjures motion without pause. One supports through harmony, the other conquers through dread. They illustrate two very different conceptions of magical femininity. Rylai as precise and communal, Crobulus as relentless and consuming. Together, these comparisons highlight how heroes splinter into distinct emotional tones and player psychologies. Rylai appeals to the quiet strategist. Wyvern speaks to the clever manipulator. Lich rewards the cold tactician. Crobulus empowers the relentless aggressor. They are all mirrors, each one reflecting how players relate to power, intelligence, and control. Part 8. Thematic counterpoints. Lina, the Slayer. If Rylai is the embodiment of stillness, restraint, and the silent power of nature's coldest touch, then Lina, her sister, is the storm that refuses to be silenced. Their relationship is not merely one of familial rivalry. It is a symbolic dialectic, a philosophical tension rendered in flame and frost. In the lore of Dota 2, the sisters were born into elemental extremes. Rylai embraced the patience and rigor demanded by the frost, while Lina became the conduit of unchecked fire. But it is more than elemental alignment that defines them. Where Riley is contemplative, precise, and defensive, Lina is passionate, impulsive, and devastatingly aggressive. Even their voice lines and animations reflect these contrasts. Rylai moves with elegance and measured calm, casting spells with a grounded confidence, while Lina exudes an almost theatrical flair, often laughing mid-cast, reveling in destruction. Mechanically, their abilities are symmetrical only on the surface. Both are ranged spellcasters with nuking potential and area control, but the way they exert influence on the battlefield is drastically different. Crystal Maiden operates as a support who shapes the flow of battle through utility. Her frostbite roots key enemies in place, her arcane aura enables allies to sustain their spellcasting, and her ultimate freezing field is a strategic commitment with enormous area denial potential. Lina, in contrast, often assumes the role of a core, her spells scaling rapidly into deadly tools of burst damage. Her light strike array stuns with precision, Dragon Slave clears waves or pressures enemies, and Laguna Blade vaporizes targets in an instant. Even their ultimates mirror their personalities. Rylai's is slow, cold, and enveloping. Lina's is fast, hot, and fatal. This dichotomy reaches beyond the Dota universe. It taps into a long-standing mythological motif, the duality of elemental siblings. The fire and ice motif is more than a visual or mechanical contrast. It is a meditation on human temperament. Rylai represents the power of deliberation, endurance, and internal focus. She is the archetype of the scholar, the mystic, the guardian of ancient truths. Lina, meanwhile, is the warrior, the rebel, the flame-bearer, whose light blinds as much as it reveals. They echo the duality of Shiva and Kali, or the Norse tension between Freya's warmth and Skadi's chill. Where one preserves, the other transforms, sometimes violently. Their psychological contrast also plays out in their personal arcs. Rylai seeks structure and harmony, often at the cost of self-assertion, while Lina's story is that of independence to the point of combustion. In many interpretations of their rivalry, Lina is portrayed as the dominant sister, stronger, more flamboyant, more loved by the world. But that perception itself becomes thematic. Crystal Maiden's strength is hidden, quiet, and enduring. Her power is the kind that reshapes the terrain of battle without ever demanding the spotlight. Even visually, they're coded as opposites. Rylai wears furs, cloaks, and soft blues, symbols of inner life and contemplation. Lina wears golds and crimsons, exposed and kinetic, radiating intensity. Rylai calls on the polar wind. Lina is the firestorm. The game's cosmetics and lore reinforce this tension, making them not just sisters, but embodiments of complementary and opposing forces. When seen side by side, Rylai and Lina are more than a rivalry. They are a ritual of balance. Their duality is a reminder that all power contains its opposite, that every flame must meet its frost, and every storm must one day settle into silence. Rylai's journey is not diminished by her sister's prominence. It is made more powerful in contrast. For the cold does not envy the fire. It endures long after the blaze is gone. Part 9. Legacy and Enduring Presence. The Eternal Frost. Since the earliest iterations of Dota, Rylai has endured. Her legacy is not marked by dominance in the meta, but by familiarity, consistency, and silent strength. In pro play, she surfaces in metas that emphasize mana control or crowd control. In pubs, she is evergreen, reliable, teachable, loved. Her true influence is not in the stats she posts, but in the behaviors she inspires. She is the guardian of the map, the reason A carry reaches their timing, the calm eye in a storm of chaos. She is a hero of unseen victories, of systems strengthened and teammates empowered. Her strength is felt, not flaunted. Outside the game, she thrives as an icon. In cosplay, in fan art, in memories, many remember her not for any singular match, but for being there when they first learned the value of discipline. She represents growth, not of flashy skill, but of consistency and clarity. And in that, she is irreplaceable. Part 10. Conclusion. In Crystal Maiden, we find a character who exemplifies the paradox of power through stillness. She reminds us that leadership often means restraint, that strength can come from support, that control can be a quiet storm. Her story, gameplay, and design interweave to create a hero who is both simple and profound. Listening to this essay, whether while walking, working, or unwinding, I hope you have found new ways to see Rylai. Not just as a hero you pick, but as a character you understand. She is a frozen flame, a beacon of discipline and compassion, a timeless symbol of the power to endure. Closing thoughts. Thank you for listening to this deep dive into Crystal Maiden. If you enjoyed this study, I encourage you to explore other character analyses on this channel. Each essay is crafted to reveal new layers and fresh perspectives on the heroes you know and love. Whether you're a longtime player or new to the world of Dota 2, there's always more to discover. Stay tuned, and may your journeys through the game be ever rewarding.